I got a question for you. Do you know your numbers and do you know what they mean? If you're gonna grow a chiropractic business where it's scaling with you actually working less, you have to know the secret to running a practice like that. And I'm gonna give you that secret. It is knowing how to run it by the numbers. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how. Have you ever heard of a gap analysis? This is one of those things where business consultants and really fancy, business coaches, they come into a business and they look at where you are and where you want to get to. And that's called a gap analysis. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that is, how you can actually do this to yourself in your own practice. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to break it down to the very numbers you need to be tracking. And so by the end of this, you're going to have the exact roadmap to get across the gap to the practice of your dreams. One of my favorite things to do with practices is the gap analysis, because I see a lot of doctors who have vision, they know where they want to go, or they've seen another type of practice they want to model, but they find themselves over here and they are not sure how to cross that gap. And so there's some equations that we use to analyze the data of a practice. And one of the very first things we have to do is to make sure the practice is tracking data. Now, that doesn't mean pulling reports from your practice management system, and spreadsheets will get you so far. But we really want to see a dashboard that is pulling data from your financials, from your practice management system, from your marketing system. When all of that data is in one location, we can begin running formulas and equations. And as I worked with one of our practices, they're in our mid-level group. It's called Evolution, and it's a program to really help you scale. And as we were working with this doctor, we broke down his data and identified where his gap was. The gap analysis showed us that the roadblock to actually getting across the gap was the new patient schedule. He was booked out 2 months. So in this situation, the doctor himself was actually the bottleneck to growing the practice. We needed a way to replicate, to be able to increase the sales process without them being there. But he was nervous because he didn't really have good control over his marketing. The 2 months he felt was 2 months out because people wanted to see him and not actually go through his process. So we looked at two things. We found that his new patient acquisition cost was only $15. Now that sounds amazing. We would all love a $15 new patient acquisition cost, but in this case, that wasn't scalable. There was no way to ramp that up because we weren't actually doing much marketing. There was no clear messaging. There was no reproducible marketing systems that would ramp that up at $15. So we actually had to retool the marketing system. We had to build a marketing budget. We had to build the doctor's confidence that we could actually turn on the machine, drive demand that wasn't all about him. We could add a case manager. We could add an associate doctor, and that we would still have demand for the services because they were now being built into a system rather than everybody wanting his expertise. Now that we've retooled that and we're starting to see that change, we now have a very healthy new patient acquisition cost at $68, and we now have a 2-week booked out schedule, but enough team to process those, and we're now seeing amazing growth within the practice. That's the beauty of a gap analysis. If you're loving these videos and like this real-time training, you are going to love our community of the Data-Driven Doc. It's a free Facebook group. Come join us. I am dropping gold in there day after day. Click the link and join. It's free. All right, so if that's the gap analysis, we need to understand what are the numbers you should be tracking to analyze the gap analysis. And this is what we call your KPIs. KPIs is key performance indicators, and I've really tried to boil this down to simplicity. So if your practice has 7 fundamental systems, we need a KPI for each one of those systems. And that key performance indicator at a glance tells us how healthy is that system. And when we define the product of that system, the KPI is measuring that product. So we know if it's healthy, and we give that to a team member. They can be the driver of that KPI. We build their expertise around driving it. For your marketing system, that KPI is scheduled new patients, not a lead. This is an actual scheduled new patient. They're on the books. That's when the actual marketing system ends and the front desk new patient system begins. Now your team, might be working on multiple systems. That's fine. I just want them to have the clarity that there are separate systems and what the product of that system is so that they can be clear on that. Now, there are obviously a lot of data points upstream from the scheduled new patient, and that's for another video. That's for deeper training. Just keeping it simple, like that's the KPI. We want to know, is the system healthy? Scheduled new patients will tell us that. That flows to the next system, which is called the front desk new patient system. And our KPI there is what percent of the scheduled new patients are keeping appointments. So it's a kept appointment percentage. Their role, their job in this system is to make sure that we nurture those scheduled new patients, that they get their appointment reminders, that they begin getting some information dripped on them, that they complete their application to become a new patient. There's a lot of ways that we can increase that show rate, but that's the KPI of that system. That now flows down to the exam and case acceptance system, which the KPI there is their start rate. What percent of these patients now flowing into this system are starting into your care plans? That now flows into the front desk established patient system, and their KPI, their number one focus is to build your scheduled appointments. Now, these are the established scheduled appointments. We actually filter out appointments that are new patients, report of findings. These are very specific patients and care plans. How many of those do we have? Because those appointments will actually drive your production, which is the downstream system. And we measure the value of those appointments by now the fulfillment team, the production team. And that is where we're delivering our services. We're measuring the value of every code that's being posted, and that's your adjusted production, your total adjusted production. We call it adjusted production because we actually want to measure it after the adjustments. These are your write-offs. These are adjustments for insurance discounts. This might be, maybe you gave them a discount for cash services. It's the number you expect to collect, and that's what we want to measure. And that's why the treatment team, the production team, the KPI is total adjusted production. That now flows down to the financial team. The financial team is responsible to make sure all money is being collected, and we measure that in what percent of the adjusted collection is actually collected. Now that collections can happen, back in the exam and case acceptance system. It can happen by PI checks coming in the back end, insurance checks coming in, payment plans coming in. They're just monitoring to make sure that all services are being collected for. The KPI, what percent of total adjusted production is collected? And that's an important number to make sure your financial lines are healthy and we have money coming into the practice. The last system now is what we call our profitability system. This is the admin system. This is the KPI you need to be watching and you're responsible for, and this is total profits. So this is just simply total collections minus total overhead equals profits, and that's the KPI for that system. When you know these numbers and you're able to really watch these on a dashboard at a glance and know the health of your practice, it gives you so much power, so much certainty of where your focus needs to be, to build your gap analysis, to know what you need to focus on, to take the steps to massive growth. Take massive action and make sure you're tracking these numbers. Again, if you're a data geek like me, make sure you've hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't be stingy with it. Share this channel with your friends. We need to build a community. We need to elevate our profession. Let's get everybody on this channel. Come on. And this brings us to our third point. Now, this is probably a little new for a lot of you. Maybe you've heard KPI, but this one is called the Accelerator. As I've built the system to track and analyze your data, we've paired a KPI with an accelerator. An accelerator allows us to accelerate the system. We're also able to monitor and manage the volume of the system to know when to support it, to know when we need to hire. And I know that's one of the big questions I get a lot is, how do I know when to hire? So the Accelerator for each system, let's start back at the marketing system. So if scheduled new patients is a KPI, we pair that with the Accelerator, which is your new patient acquisition cost. That new patient acquisition cost is key if you're going to be working with a marketing agency, or if you're going to bring marketing in-house. You've got to know your new patient acquisition cost. This is your marketing labor, this is your ad spend, all bundled together, divided by your completed new patients, to now give us our new patient acquisition cost. As we move downstream into the front desk new patient system, we have the new patient kept appointment percentage, but now we pair that with the Accelerator of total completed new patients. This tells us the volume that's coming through there so that we can support that team member if we need to. Moving into the exam and case acceptance, we pair the start rate with what percent of presented care plan value was accepted. This is a quality check metric. This allows us to make sure that our sales process is building enough value. And as you turn over some of the sales process to a case manager, we want an opportunity to make sure that they are building value into the care plans, that the patient is accepting a high percent of those care plans, both in the services and in the number of those care plans being accepted. That now goes down into the front desk established patient system, where we have your total scheduled established patients paired with your percent of kept appointments for those. Think about this. The higher the kept appointment rate, the more of those scheduled patients will come in for services. That accelerates the flow down to the treatment team. And the treatment team, we're monitoring that total adjusted production, but we want to pair that with the Accelerator of adjusted production per visit. We want to make sure that we're delivering all services. And because different patients will be in different phases of care, we kind of want to see where are we on average of production per visit. And it's the adjusted, remember, we're adjusting that for write-offs and insurance adjustments. So if we can increase that by delivering more services to the patient, more quality of care, then we're actually optimizing our services per patient. We don't have to have as much volume coming through the practice, right? We can quiet the noise a little bit, spend more time with the patient, give them more quality of care. We then go down to the financial team, and this is an important accelerator paired with that percent of adjusted production collected. This is total collections because that's what's going to accelerate. So we want to monitor those collections. We want to make sure we have volume of collections. We're hitting our financial goals. That now takes us down to the admin system, total profits, paired with the accelerator of what we call the average skill set rating. Now I know you're not going to know what that is. This is actually a really cool number that we get from part of the system, from the Profit Accelerator system. And if you don't know what the Profit Accelerator system is, oh my goodness, you're missing out, because this is an opportunity for you to take control of your overhead, master the financial systems in your practice, and it's called the Profit Accelerator system. So you got to go join that in order to understand what that is. But if you're not ready to dive into the Profit Accelerator system, then let's just take the next step, which is to join our free challenge. It is a 10-day challenge for you to learn these numbers, to understand data, how to jump in with a community who is passionate about scaling practices. If you're ready for that, and again, we've really lowered the barrier for you to free, come be a part of it. What do you have to lose other than make a whole bunch of money and serve way more patients and change more patients' lives, be a better leader, help more people in your community, like, you know, just that. So click the link below, join, come be a part of this community. We're having a blast. You're missing out. Don't be a drifter. Come be a driven doc. Click the link below. I'll see you on the inside.